Morning, it's Wayne O'Keefe and I'm fishing here in the Plenty River. This is about the third time I've done this, and I've had a bit of fun in the past, so I'm going to do it again. Early morning, it's pretty cool actually. It's going to be about 27 degrees today, but it's about 13 at the moment, so a bit nippy, but I'm hoping that won't affect the fishing. We've had quite a bit of rain here. If you can see here in that water, it's actually the same colour as milk coffee, and it's usually a bit clearer than that, but with all of the rain it's washed a lot of silt and things like that in here. So that means that today I'm going to have to use baits that have a lot of smell in them, because in really coloured water like that, the fish aren't going to see it obviously, so we have to rely on their sense of smell. So what I'll do is I'll throw a little bit of burley out, just out in front of me, just a couple of metres away from where I am right now in the water, and hopefully that's doing its work, bringing the fish in. And I've done one other thing this time. I've actually come down here for the last 4 days in a row, and I've put a little bit of burley into the water where I'm going to fish. So it's called pre-baiting. It's where you actually, if you're close enough to the water that you're going to fish, you can come down and do that. And the great thing about that is that after a while the fish come to expect food to be there. So I'm hoping now to reap the rewards of doing that early work. So we'll see how we go. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is use a nice big worm today. So I'm size 8 hook, really lively worm, scrub worm. In this type of water, especially after that rain, the worms are going to have been washed in. So this is a prime bait for these conditions. And I've thrown a couple of small pieces of worm out there as well. So I'm telling everybody that food's on. It's pretty restricted, pretty tight in here. There's trees all around everywhere. So I have to do underarm casts and hope I don't cast straight into trees and bushes. Okay, first one in. Casting only about 3 metres away from where I am standing right here, so it's not far out at all, so you can't be stomping around, you've got to be really quiet. Just tighten that up. There we go. Okay. Wait and see. Oh, that is a big eel. Whoa, look at that. Oh, whoa, that's big. Oh, goodness. Look at that. Oh, huge. The pre-baiting worked. This is a big eel. Boy, look at the size of that. Huge. And I caught him within a couple of minutes of beginning here, so obviously it did bring the fish on. Wow, that pre-baiting works. There's a couple of things I always bring with me when I do this type of fishing. Because you're in such a restricted area like this, I can't stand up. When I cast, I have to just flick it out because there's trees all around me. So first, I don't bring a chair with me, although I want to sit down. So what I always do is I bring a little bit of this stuff. This fits in my bag. This is just a sort of a rubbery material. You can get it in $2 shops and discount stores. It comes in a sheet, and it's I think in fact it's the stuff that you can use for a grip to get the tops off bottles and things like that. But if you fold that up, it's very comfortable. I just put it on the ground in a little spot here, and rather than bringing a chair, I can just roll that up and put it into my bag. So that makes it convenient for sitting. The other thing is that when you're in this sort of dense cover, there's a lot of insects, in particular mosquitoes. And last time I was here, I got eaten alive. So I always bring some roll on. Well, I normally do. I left it before, but having that in your tackle bag will really, really help, because sometimes you go to the beach and you get those great big flies that bite. This stuff's strong enough to get rid of those. Sometimes you need tropical strength actually for those, but something like this to repel those. And then mosquitoes, when you're out sort of into the sort of heavier bush area, really make a difference in your comfort, because if you get eaten alive, you just don't want to stay. And it could be a great fishing day spoiled by those little biting insects. Oh wow. Another little eel. These things are slippery and full of life. God. I said before that in conditions like this, with the water this colour, so heavily silted, that the fish are going to rely on their sense of smell more than anything else to locate food. So one of the things I did, especially with the scrub worms I was using, I just put a bit of like a power bait type scented dough on top of the bait. Now, I've done this before where I've actually used a cocktail of baits, but something that really gives off plenty of scent. This is an aniseed flavour that I've just rolled on, put on just a tiny bit on top of the hook where it's tied onto the line. The circle of the hook there makes it easy just to put a tiny bit on, and I'm saying a piece the size of a bit of rice, just enough of that with that worm to send off scent into the water. If you put too much of this is floating. If you put too much, you might actually lift the bait off, or it might move around. So rather than do that, I just put a small amount on. But I got that small eel just by doing that. Now, while I mentioned that I was using insect repellent to keep the insects away, one of the absolute kiss of death items you can have is either insect repellent on your hands when you handle bait, or sunscreen on your hands when you handle a bait. Both of those things, they have strong smells, and it's something that fish do not like. So look, the best thing to do is I always wipe my hands before I actually put my bait on the hook, so that if I've got insect repellent on it in particular, because you can just scratch your face or something like that, pick up the scent of the insect repellent, and then put it straight onto the bait. So what I carry with me is a little tiny towel, like this, which is always damp. Just wipe that off with your hands so that you actually make sure you remove the scent. Or otherwise, what you can do is you can just put your fingers into your bait itself, and just and into this, like for instance the soil in the worms, just rub that onto your hands, and that'll certainly get rid of it. But probably something like this is always very, very useful. I ran my net through the water, and of all things got a baby eel. So clearly they're breeding in these waters, and that explains the numbers that I'm catching. At least that's an indication of a healthy waterway. tangle. Well, I just landed this big carp here in pretty restricted conditions, so I'll just get him out of the net. Oh boy, he's pretty big. Okay, geez, I'll probably put this at about 5 kilos, but in these really restricted conditions they're pretty tough to catch and get in. Luckily, it's even hard to stand here. I've got very little room, but in these restricted conditions it's really hard to maneuver. Luckily I had a net with me, which makes it easy to get out. I would never have been able to lift this guy out. And he took a scrub worm, but I had actually also centered it with a little bead of power bait on the tip, or on at least on the ring of the hook, and I think that's what helped them locate the bait. Anyway, a bit of fun in here, puts up a bit of a fight. Luckily I had fairly heavy line and everything, because I know that these fish are real scrappers, but there's plenty of snags and branches in here, so you've got to be able to bully them out. But look, this is a local waterway. Just tell me, I reckon this is about 5 kilos. What's the biggest fish you've caught in your local creek or a local river, but something in the middle of the suburbs, something where you don't expect to get a lot of fish? But what's the biggest fish you've ever caught there? I'd love to know about that, because I reckon they can be a lot bigger than this.